Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's October 18th, 2023. We are in the Old Testament. We're in the book of 1 Kings, and we're going to read from chapter 12, verse 1 to 15. So another nice little short one today. If you're following along in the ESV guide, which we downloaded, that little four-part guide, that usually means when we have a short one that the other three were pretty long, and they were today. And that's why we use that four-part one, so it kind of evens it out. If you're not using the guide, no worries. Just follow along where we can. So another thing, when we see these short sections that we read, a lot usually happens in them, and this one is no different. So Solomon has died, and his son Rehoboam is going to become the king. So he'll be the fourth king over Israel. He's the third in that line: David, Solomon, Rehoboam, but Saul was the first king. Okay. All right, Saul was a bad king, but he was the king that the people wanted, and we want a king just like everybody else, and God gave them Saul, and he turned out to be a king just like everybody else. He was kind of corrupt, hated have any rivals at all. Even his own son he tried to kill. So bad king. God got rid of him, and he put David there and said, all right, now this is a king after my own heart. This is the kind of king I had in mind for you guys, because there was the plan that a king would eventually arise. Again, David was called a man after God's own heart, so he was very well connected to God, but he was still a sinner. He still made some mistakes, so he wasn't perfect. But he did, whenever he made a mistake, we saw, he would admit his mistake, he would repent, he would sacrifice, and he would try and get back in good with God. He kept the people at the top of it. Everything he did for the people. So he had God and the people. That was his guiding light. His son Solomon, wisdom, and kept the people and God as first in his life. Again, wasn't perfect, just like his father. Towards the end of Solomon's life, he starts chasing after other gods because he's got all these wives and they're chasing after other gods, so he wants to keep them happy, and so does Solomon. As a result, God says, you know what, that's it. I promised you guys David and his descendants would have the throne of all of Israel as long as they obeyed me, but you're not obeying me, so I'm going to strip it away. I did say David would always have a descendant on the throne of Judah, which is now the southern kingdom. It's going to become Judah. The northern kingdoms, God says, all right, I'm going to take those away and I'm going to give them to somebody else. And we saw at the end of the reading we did yesterday, it was a guy named Jeroboam. That's who God picked and said, all right, if you follow me, I'll give you the northern kingdoms. All right, so they were united under Saul, united under David, united under Solomon. And by united, it's kind of loose. Every king comes up, doesn't just automatically become king of the whole territory. He's got to be approved by all the tribes. So the tribes of Judah, after Solomon dies, lift up his son Rehoboam and said, all right, you're our king. Now Rehoboam is now coming to the rest of the tribes and saying, okay, I'm the heir to the king. You're going to accept me. You're going to follow me. And the northern tribes say, all right, we'll follow you on one condition. Okay, your father put us all to work, because all these buildings that they built and pressed us into service and taxed us, and it's starting to get burdensome, and we would like you to lower it. Not eliminate it. You don't have to necessarily eliminate it, but bring it down so we can live with it. And Rehoboam, well, somewhat wisely says, you know what, hey, give me a few days, let me think about it, let me consult some people, and I'll come back and give you an answer. Now he goes and he consults, well, he doesn't consult God directly, he consults first the elders. And by elders, that would have been the descendants or the advisors of his father, Solomon. So if Solomon is the wisest man in all the world, these are the people that worked with him and he bounced ideas off of, so they should be pretty wise too. And they wisely give him the advice of, hey, you know what, give the people a little bit break, be their servant leader, show them a little kindness now, they'll be with you forever. As a Christian, we should recognize, hey, that's exactly what Jesus said. You want to lead people, be a servant, serve them, lift them up, and they'll lift you up too. Pretty wise advice, but Rehoboam says, let me talk to some other people. And The Hebrew word for the group that he talks to, the young men he talks to, it's actually, they're talking like babies. So now, Rehoboam is about 41. These people are probably in that same age, but the idea is they have no experience. They don't know what they're talking about. They tell him, oh, you know what? You tell him, oh, you're too tough to give him a break. In fact, you're going to stick it to him even worse than Solomon did. And Rehoboam says, hey, that's what I'm going to do. All right, now we said way back in here, if you go back to Deuteronomy 18, there were 3 commandments for kings not to do. One was don't accumulate wives for yourself, and we saw that was David's downfall, and essentially at the end of Solomon's life it was his downfall too. Don't gather horses to yourself and deal in horses with Egypt. Solomon did that. The one that neither one of them did was accumulate wealth for themselves. Now they accumulated wealth, but they poured it into the country. Now this doesn't really tell us that Rehoboam started being greedy and accumulating wealth, but the idea here is David and Solomon always put the people first. So even when they were getting wealth, they put it in the treasury. Let's make the people stronger. Let's build infrastructure for them. Rehoboam, with his choice here, is pushing the people away and saying, no, I want to do what I want to do. So he has essentially violated the big commandment, which is put the people first. That's what God wanted his king to do. That's what Jesus tells us, right? God first, then the other people. And that's how he lived his life. But Rehoboam makes the wrong choice. He says, you know what? I want what I want. People, you know what? I don't care about you people. And we're going to see how that plays out. So let's go ahead and we're going to read 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 1 through 15. And Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel had gone to Shechem to make him king. So it happened when Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, heard of this, he was still in Egypt, for he had fled from the presence of King Solomon and had been dwelling in Egypt, that they sent and called him. Then Jeroboam and the whole assembly of Israel came and spoke to Rehoboam, saying, your father made our yoke heavy. Now therefore lighten the burdensome service of your father and his heavy yoke which he put on us, and we will serve you. So he said to them, depart for 3 days, then come back to me. And the people departed. Then King Rehoboam consulted the elders who stood before his father. Then King Rehoboam consulted the elders who stood before his father Solomon while he still lived. And he said, how do you advise me to answer these people? And they spoke to him, saying, if you will be a servant to these people today, and serve them, and answer them, and speak good words to them, then they will be your servants forever. But he rejected the advice which the elders had given him, and consulted the young men who had grown up with him, who stood before him. And he said to them, what advice do you give? How should we answer this people who have spoken to me, saying, lighten the yoke which your father put on us? Then the young men who had grown up with him spoke to him, saying, thus you should speak to this people who have spoken to you, saying, your father made our yoke heavy, but you make it lighter on us. Thus you shall say to them, my little finger shall be thicker than my father's waist. And now, whereas my father put a heavy yoke on you, I will add to your yoke. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scourges. So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam the 3rd day, as the king had directed, saying, come back to me the 3rd day. Then the king answered the people roughly, and rejected the advice which the elders had given him, and spoke to them according to the advice of the young men, saying, my father made your yoke heavy, but I will add to your yoke. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scourges. So the king did not listen to the people, for the turn of events was from the Lord, that he might fulfill his word, which the Lord had spoken by Ahijah the Shilonite to Jeroboam the son of Nebat. May God bless the reading of his word, and may God bless you. Bye.